Hello, my name's Rich, and this is another installment of my YouTube videos and voice of me. A lot of times when I'm working with people or I'm with people, I'm rather quiet, but silent waters run deep, and I am a recovering alcoholic, also a person who is medicated for depression. Long-term recovering, 27 years, working on 28, and 2 years ago I got on the antidepressant meds because my moods weren't reflecting what was going on inside my head. I wasn't sad or feeling self-destructive, but something inside my brain chemistry wanted me to do so, and I was fortunate to have a gentleman introduce me to Eric Hempel, who used to play for the Lions. He suffers from depression, lost his son to suicide, and Eric helped me decide to get medicated because I didn't like the way things were going. And at that time, I had wanted to go back to school. I had failed at college when I was 19. My high school record was not good because probably of depression, and I did start drinking at a young age. And after about 2 months on medication, things changed dramatically. I became the person I had been before my father passed when I was 7. Not quite the wild mood swings, and I promised myself I'd give it a year to make sure that everything was going to be right. Most times when I get medication, it does work. It has worked meaningfully, rather quickly. A quick healer. Well, the doctor told me in 2 months, give it 2 months, and it takes 2 months for the drug to manifest itself in a positive way. Well, 2 years a day, it did exactly that, because I found myself saying and doing things in such a positive manner that I couldn't believe it. I actually stopped myself and reflected on how, to the day, it had done what it was supposed to do. So about a year into it, I start talking to a counselor at Schoolcraft and want to set up a way to get back into school. And my first go around in Schoolcraft was awful. Many of the classes I took, I picked without thinking. I wanted to go and get into something where I was going to make a lot of money. It wasn't necessarily my interest, but and then when I got into the classes, the teachers were, for me, difficult because I had never applied myself in school, and I blame that partially on depression, and it had me behave in ways that were not productive to high school education or elementary grade education. So me and the counselor, we set things up for one semester, one class. That's all he could promise me. So I took the class, and I'm going through it, and I did very well. I told him I think I'm gonna pull a B in this, the way it's going. I only had one other assignment left to go, and it was almost a sure thing that I was gonna pull it. The teacher had told I didn't ask for the grades because you're gonna pull the 2.0, so don't worry about that. You'll be halfway to financial aid. So I sat down with him before that class was over, and we created a plan for the first year. And the spring semester, we set up a sociology class, and when I finished the English class, I got my grade. It was a B+, which surprised the hell out of me. Sociology class, I was a little bit nervous about because I hadn't taken anything like that. But when I got into the subject matter, the theories and all that sort of thing, I knew them, but I didn't know them by the name that sociologists use. I'd experienced them. It was a life experience thing. And she was fairly loose in the way she allowed us to do homework at home, and the extra credit we did at home, and presentations we did in groups, and different tests we took in groups. And a seven-week course, a lot jammed in there in a very short period of time. And I was nervous about it, and there were nights that I'd be up cracking the books 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had work, and it was hard. But there were a couple times where I said I can't do this, and the other side of me said, "You said you couldn't do this when you started the first class. You got a B+. Step into it." And I did. And it was a little bit crunch at the end of the semester, but I got everything in, and I pulled an A. And for anyone who has gone through grief, losing a parent at a very young age, and you don't have anyone there for guidance, or you having a way to express your grief. I mean, it's one thing to talk about, but sometimes you just have to constantly talk about it. And the person that dies gets lost in memory by some people who are not immediate family members, or some family members deal with the grief a whole lot easier, and they're older and they're able to put it in their place. Well, at 7 years old, I wasn't able to do so. My father was my best friend. We had moved a few times, so I hadn't made a whole lot of school friends. And every time I tried to talk about my dad, my mom would get very sad. And I didn't want that to happen. And I held it inside me for a long time. I started facilitating as a volunteer at Sandcastles, a group that deals with family grief. And I put myself in the group, the age group of the kids that were my age when I lost my dad. I could relate to them, and they related to me. Over the course of 4 years, I was able to reflect upon myself and realize that I was not alone, and I was able to put some things into place, some unfinished things that had nothing to do with my grief, that probably had been a product of me not processing my grief. I faced them, and I put them in such a way that I was able to accept whatever the final verdict was on any, except the final verdict on anything that occurred, be it friendships, be it relationships, be it crushes, be it infatuations, whatever it be. And in relatively short time, I found myself healing. And, couple this with going to school, I found myself becoming more normal, not focusing on what I lost, but focusing on what I'm gaining. And through all this, through all the tribulations I had when no one would listen to me and before saying castles, I tried to get through every day, and I tried to be positive, and there were days that it was just an absolute bear to get through. But I tried to always accentuate the positive, and in doing so, now that I've conquered some of these other demons, I don't allow myself to get negative. I look at negative situations where people are hurting other people, and I try to put it out there to have people look at it and have people say, hey, we need to step up and help these people. And it's not an easy thing for someone to step up and encourage or comfort someone who is going through a difficult time. But when you do it, you get something back. It makes you strong. It makes that person strong, because when you get the positive feedback from your encouragement, it makes you want to give out more. And maybe it's just a start for some people, planting that seed, and then maybe they can go on and plant seeds for other people. Myself, I think there's much too little of this going on in this country and in this world, where people do not encourage people who are going through difficulties and letting them know that they can conquer anything. If you have a dream, don't let anyone talk you out of it. It may take you the long way around to get to it, but you'll get there if you don't give up, if you persist, you persevere. As a former president once said, and I've had this saying up in my room on my wall for over 20 years, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. That's why lesser people make it with people who have more. So if you have more and you're persistent, you can make your mark, and you can help other people, and hopefully it rises everything up. Education over ignorance. The day I was born, the hospital flooded. The basement flooded. The power was knocked out. It's not like today where hospitals have backup generators. The basement in the hospital was below ground level. Hospital personnel and firefighters went door to door outside the hospital to get candles, flashlights, lanterns, whatever they could to help the doctors see. I was one of the children born that day, and they took me out by candlelight. And when they took me out with instruments, and as many people know, baby skin is very tender and bruises very easily. The instruments were used around my eyes, and so I had 2 bruises on my eyes like I had 2 black eyes, and my father said, "This kid's a fighter, and I'm here to tell other people I may have been a born fighter. I'm here to try and show people how to fight and not give up. At least encourage them to not give up. Hang in there. When the dawn is darkest, God has another plan. Hang in there."